So here's the first question, asking you for the approximation for this thing here. So basically what we want to do is find the nearest values of these three numbers, 37, 304, and 58. Correct to the nearest 10 because, you know, that would be easier to calculate than doing this all by yourself using mental calculation or whatever method you want to use. So the nearest number to 37 in terms of using zeros would be 40. And for 304, that would be 300. And finally, for 58, the nearest tens number we have should be 60 instead of 50. I guess you would see why. You can see why easily. So that's your answer. And finally, we can just use some normal calculation. First of all, this part, 4 times 3 is 12 with 3 zeros, and then divide by 60. Get rid one of the zeros, and then 12 divided by 6 is 2, and add the 2 zeros. That gives you 2 marks. Yeah, here it is. So that's the end of question 1. Now we can go on to question 2. Let's see. So they want you to multiply this and find what this value is. So for this, we just multiply it, just like this. Multiply this and this, so that we can get 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times the x is 3 times 2 is 6, and then with the x, and finally 3 times negative 7, remember the minus sign, is negative 21. So that's your answer. Multiply that 1 mark. And now for 2b, they want you to factorize this. So there are 2 things you should remember when you're doing any type of factorization, no matter if the second question or the 15th question. So first of all, always remember to take out the common factor. What we mean is, you can look at 2b, obviously there's something in common between these 2 terms, which is the x. So we can take out the x like this, and then use a bracket. X times x is x squared. Remember the plus sign. And finally, 8 times x is 8x. So as we can see, you can really translate the entire thing in terms of this factorization. X times x is x squared, and x times plus 8 is positive 8x. So that's how you get the answer for 1 mark. And also remember another thing, after you do out the taking out the common factor thing, remember sometimes your answer doesn't really look like this easy. Basically, sometimes you need to do cross multiplication, just like for one of the questions in this paper. So basically what that means is sometimes you have stuff like this, maybe 5x squared. Actually, give me a sec. Okay. For instance, you might have something that looks like this. 15x squared here, as you can see. Let's see. Minus x minus 6. Sometimes after doing some factorization, you still have something like this. For instance, for a really easy example, maybe the question originally looked like this. Maybe 15x cubed minus x squared minus 6x. So in the beginning, we can actually tell people that, oh, there's an x in common in all 3 of these terms. So we can take out the x first, like this, and bracket the entire thing so that we get this. But this isn't actually your final answer. You still have to do some things, because you can see the x squared here, and also you can actually do a further factorization using cross multiplication, which is done like this. So this is your final answer. The first thing you have to do is think about which 2 things, and after you multiply it, will get you 15x squared. So obviously there should be an x, so the x times x is x squared. And then for 15, the only common factors you can think of, except for 1 and 15, are 3 and 5. So these should be your answers. And then for this side, you have to think about which numbers will give you negative 6, not just 6. So there's 1, 6, 2, 3, yeah, basically these sets, and then you can also do 3, 2, and 6, 1. And one of them has to be negative, because you need negative 6, right? So I don't know where you put the negative sign, so you should actually try different things out. Let's try 1 and 6 first. And now, what you have to do is multiply this. This is 5x. Multiply this with this, 18x. with 5x and 18x, no matter how you add or subtract, you can never get the middle part, negative x. So goodbye, this is obviously wrong, however you do it, even if you put a negative sign next to it. So we can do that again with this. 3x and 5x, let's try 2 and 3, like this, in this order. So for this, we have 10x up here, 5 times 2 is 10, 3 times 3 is 9. So we have this. So for 10 and 9, we can obviously get 1, right? So the only question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we put the minus? So obviously, 9x minus 10x equals to a negative x, right? 9 minus 10 is negative 1. So we put the negative here so that this becomes negative. And this is your answer. So just copy it back up here. The x is still outside, but this time we have 2 brackets. 3x minus 2, 5x plus 3. So this is a more difficult, more advanced factorization question that may come up in your exam.